6 races remain in the 2025 Ginetta Junior Championship, but perhaps fewer races stand between Rocco Coronel and a championship victory that has looked almost a foregone conclusion, really, since the very first meeting of the season. He is on the verge, potentially this weekend, of wrapping up the title. He was not, however, fastest in qualifying. In fact, far from it. It was Max Cuthbert for R Racing who got the pole position, so one of Rocco's many teammates. Fred Green, though, alongside him on row 1. Colin Cronin and George Proudfoot-Nalder, the Aussie, on row 2 together with Ethan Carney, and then championship leader Rocco Coronel, by his standards, a disastrous 6th place on the grid. His teammate Scott Lindblom, fellow Red Bull rookie driver, starts 7th alongside Alfie Slater, whilst Harry Bartle and Jarrett Clark complete the top 10. Race 6 for Torrin Byrne and Noah Young. Torrin's had flashes of brilliance this year, would love to piece together some good results this weekend. Max Murray and Josh Watts then are together on the 7th row, Project R alongside Performance 1, whilst then Belgian driver Emilio Del Grosso has Irishman Josh Henry for company on row 8. Row 9 for Lewis Goff and Raul Zanzaran with Revi Lake and Matthew Chihuahua together on row 10. That completes the top 20 of a 24-car grid. Felipe Reich and Henry Cameron are next, with Katrina E and Andrew Robinson bringing up the rear. It's hard, really, to put into words the dominance of Rocco Coronel this year. He has scored, at this point, 13 race victories. That's basically all but 4 races this year won by Rocco Coronel. There have been 2 wins for Fred Green, one at Alton Park and one at Snetterton. There was a win at the start of the year for Alfie Slater. He actually won the very first round of the championship, and he won the most recent race, the 3rd race at Zandvoort last time out. Rocco Coronel's worst finish of the year, though, has been 6th. That was in the very first race at Donington Park. Since then, he has never finished worse than 2nd. It's an unbelievable record. And if you just look at that on its own, without context, you'd be fooled into thinking that this has been a rather uneventful and, dare I say it, boring season of Ginetta Junior racing. It's been far from it. It's been one of the most exciting years of racing that we've had for quite some time. Big grids, often knocking on the door of 30 cars across earlier points of the season. Brilliant pack racing, lots of side-by-side, lots of great racing. It's not even like Rocco Coronel's disappeared off in the lead and made that bit look easy. He's always had a fight on his hands, and definitely will this weekend from 6th on the grid, but somehow he just always seems able to pick his way to the front at the end of the race when it really matters. And the R Racing Red Bull Junior driver is going to be looking to try and repeat that feat here at Brands Hatch. That being said, this is not always the easiest of places to overtake at, although no one told the Ginetta Junior drivers when we were last here at the end of last season. They put on couple of the best Ginetta Junior races in the history, long and very successful and very exciting history of the championship. But starting from 6th is not ideal here for Rocco. We'll be watching with interest to see how the championship leader gets on. Touched upon the fact that there's a chance maybe he could wrap the title up this weekend. It would take quite a Herculean effort, in fairness, and it certainly won't happen until tomorrow. We'll update you properly on that tomorrow morning, but he is 108 points clear of Fred Green after drop scores coming into this weekend. Fred then starts on the front row, but it's pole position for Max Cuthbert. The lights go out and our final race of the day is underway. Difficult sometimes to start from pole position, but Max Cuthbert gets off the line well. Max, of course, like the majority of the grid, looking for a first victory of the season, has Fred Green, twice a winner in the mid part of the year, right behind him. They drop down the hill through Paddock Hill Bend. A clean start by the looks of it. But now an attack comes. Look at that. Immediately at the inside of Druids. Through goes Fred Green. He elbows Max Cuthbert wide. Max caught maybe a little bit unawares there on the brakes into Druids. I don't think he expected that challenge to come immediately, but it did. One of Rocco Coronel, we'll find out where he is in a moment. We're on board with George Proudfoot-Nalder actually there. He's up into 4th. Rocco, look, is trying to go with him. They're both just nipped up the inside of Ethan Carney, and so Rocco Coronel, I believe, will be 5th by the time they get out of the corner. Carney on the outside gets elbowed wide over the curb. Yep, through goes Coronel. You can tell his father was a front runner of the World Touring Car Championship for a number of years. That was a proper touring car move, and through he goes. Now the slipstream takes effect down the hill. They are 3 abreast in the mid-pack. That's got disaster written all over it. Ethan Carney there in the red and black car trying to limit the damage, keeps Alfie Slater behind him, and so I think we'll retain about 6th position as they head for Westfield for the first time of asking. It is a high-speed circuit, this. I know the Indy part of the layout looks very tight and technical, but it's got that long pit straight where the slipstream will bunch them together, and certainly on the Grand Prix loop, it remains very slipstream friendly. It's very dusty still. Look up at the top of the circuit, and that off-track excursion for Harry Bartle will not have helped the situation. He drags even more dirt onto the racetrack. That particular sequence of corners through Sheen and Stirlings has been catching so many drivers out today because it's so dirty. There's so much dust that's been dragged onto the road and not swept up between sessions, and so the track conditions are far from ideal out at one of the fastest corners on the track. Leaders, though, across the line. Fred Green leads, Max Cuthbert second. Third position then for Colin Cronin. And fourth, George Proudfoot-Nalder, both of them in the same positions they started in. We're on board with the championship leader, Rocco Coronel, who realistically could just sit here now in fifth position. Fifth place, more than enough points for him to keep a very healthy championship lead, even though his nearest championship rival, Fred Green, is the race leader. Rocco does not need to win any more races this year, and he would still be the champion, but that, I don't think, is in his mindset, is it? He is a racer. He's a race winner, clearly. He's won by far the most races of the season for any driver, and he won't want to sit in fifth place and just bank the points. He'll want to be up here with these two, fighting for a race victory. Also interesting to have an elite motorsport car and an R racing car battling for the lead. So often it's been a group of R racing cars and a group of elite cars at the front, and this time around it's one-on-one because Max Cuthbert for now seems content to work with Fred Green, doesn't he? Pushing him down the hill there into Hawthorns. This looks rather more exciting, doesn't it? That's the 22 car defending the inside line into Westfield. That's Josh Watts at the front of this group. Torrin Byrne behind. So too is the number 5, the yellow car of Emilio Del Grosso, who goes to the inside of Torrin Byrne at Westfield. Torrin ends up out in the dirt. That's more dust and gravel dragged onto the circuit, and more places lost, I'm afraid, for car 18, because they're all going to come streaming through now on the way into Sheen Curve. Big dive for Slater there, and there's contact, and sideways goes Cuthbert, miraculously avoided by everybody else. Sorry, Ethan Carney, I should say, beg your pardon, who gets tapped into the spin. And that was a big dive up the inside for Alfie Slater, and Ethan Carney, the one who came out of that the worst. So didn't see exactly how that started, but it was a big lunge up the inside, and Ethan Carney, unfortunately, coming out of that by far the worst. So far, I'd say this tactic of Max Cuthbert to work with Fred Green is probably a sensible one, because look, they're even battling for third now, with Colin Cronin coming under increasing pressure from George Proudfoot-Nalder and Rocco Coronel. Coronel sweeps to the outside. He's got his nose ahead of Proudfoot-Nalder. Does George leave him space on the exit of the corner? Answer, well, sort of. There was definitely a tap in the door, but he left a car's width on the exit, and Rocco Coronel, who's just set the fastest lap of the race, is now into fourth position. Now, if anyone is going to be able to drag this second group of cars onto the tail of the race leaders, you'd have to suspect it would be the runaway championship leader. So if he comes knocking, when he comes knocking on the door of Colin Cronin, my advice to Colin would be to let him go, because I think that's his best chance, ultimately, of getting back into the battle for the lead. At the start of the lap, third place Cronin was 1.4 seconds behind the leading two. That's out of slipstreaming range, I would say. So realistically, that second group of cars are going to have to work together, aren't they, to close back in on the leading two. These are the leading two, Fred Green and Max Cuthbert, hopping over the curb at Westfield. Dropping, plunging downhill. Ooh, that was a tight line for Coronel. Yes, because they're not working together. He's got George Proudfoot-Nalder trying to get through. To the outside goes Slater. Now we know Slater's not afraid of making a lunge into the next corner at Stirling. So George Proudfoot-Nalder defends the inside line in anticipation of that attack. There's a big lunge at the back there from Bartle, who was off at that corner a few laps ago, and he's just got himself ahead of Clark. That was a good move there on Jarrett Clark at Stirling's. And so a place gained then by the number 73 car. Harry Bartle going very well in this one. Harry has yet to have a podium finish this year. In fact, I'm not convinced has had a top 5. No, best finish of 8th, which came at Snetterton earlier this year. So he's on course at the moment to match that, but he might well go better, because the two cars ahead of him are going side by side. In fact, he launches up the inside of Lindblom himself, so Bartle really with the bit between his teeth. He gains a position. George Proudfoot-Nalder on the outside there of Slater as they turn into Druids Corner. And how is this one all going to pan out? Well, Slater's going to go through. Of course, Bartle wants to try and follow him. And Harry Bartle in that white-green number 73 car is a man on the move at the moment. through the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend, takes a wide line in, gets a bit more curb look than George Proudfoot Nalder ahead of him, and that might yield an opportunity into Surtees. Is there a gap up the inside? Yes, there is. That gap is filled by car 73, which gets to the apex first, gets up the curb sideways, leaning on Proudfoot Nalder, who was inevitably going to end up in the dirt, and through will go the 73 machine, except there's a big squeeze. Scott Lindblom stuck in the middle, and that could have been a big moment at the top of Pilgrim's Drop. Thankfully, they got away with it, but it is George Proudfoot Nalder, who qualified well on the second row of the grid, who comes out of that the worst. He drops to the back of this group, and through therefore has gone the Swedish driver Scott Lindblom and Clark as well. So Clark, who remember tangled, did he not, earlier on with someone up at Stirling's, now starting to pick his way back through the order. Although, now under threat from George Proudfoot Nalder as they drop down through Dingle Dell. In fact, he didn't put up much of a fight there, did he really? So George Proudfoot Nalder slips through. Who's that catching them? That's Josh Watts, isn't it? Josh Watts going really well in the 22 car, about to latch onto the tail of that group. He's the all-white car, and he's going all right, isn't he? Almost now in touch with the top 10. In fact, he is in the top 10, 10th place at the moment. Then you've got Emilio Del Grosso. This is Ginetta Junior racing at its best, isn't it? This, meanwhile, is the situation at the front. They are working together very well, I've got to say. Max Cuthbert even bump drafting Fred Green down the main straight there. On the last lap, well, to be fair, Rocco Coronel is matching them in third position, but they were over a second quicker than the fourth place car, Colin Cronin, there, who's sort of going with Rocco Coronel. But Coronel was only a couple of tenths quicker than the leader. He'll need more than that to bridge what is nearly a 4-second gap at the moment. Emilio Del Grosso there gets hung out to dry at Druids. Through on the inside goes Joshua Henry in the blue and black Elite Motorsport car. So two elite teammates there doing battle. Then you've got the 95 going around the outside, or attempting to. That's Noah Young. Scott Lindblom is out over the grass, and that will open the door for the charging Josh Watts to gain another position. Not sure why Josh is running no livery on that car. Maybe a change of car. There might be a story to that from earlier in the weekend. My word, that was a big mess through the left-hander at Surtees. And it's Emilio Del Grosso, Raul Zanzaren, no, Emilio Del Grosso, got it right the first time, who is losing ground, isn't he, in the yellow and black car. That is Raul Zanzaren, going around the outside, the number 3 machine. Got number 4 in this group as well, Lewis Goff, who's on the outside. Oh, it's all very touchy-feely, and Lewis is off on the grass. He's not the only one, in fairness, gathers it together. So Zarin was wide as well. Torin Byrne is up the inside now. And you've got the number 17 car as well. They're all rally crossing out of Westfield, and who's that getting spat out of line? They're 4 wide down the hill. That will not work through Dingle Dell, and again, they managed to bail out of it before disaster strikes. But this is getting very close for comfort. They're all squeezing each other. It is Torin Byrne who ends up with 2 wheels on the grass this time, and will just about find a gap back in line. I have no idea how they all got through those last few corners. That should have been an almighty accident, but thank goodness it wasn't. Getting an update, by the way, from Simon Pace that the reason for that all-white car for Josh Watts is that he's changed team. He's now with Performance 1, so it's a new car, or a new team anyway, so perhaps the same car, but not yet liveried up. So that's why he's running all white. It's good though, really. It makes him stand out, and if the car wasn't making him stand out, then the pace that he's got this weekend would definitely be doing the trick. Right, deep breath everyone. We are halfway through this first race of the weekend, and all of this action going on in the midfield, you kind of sense is the precursor to some real action at the front of the field, don't you? Because at some point Max Cuthbert's going to have a go at Fred Green, and then it could all kick off at the head of the pack as well. Wide there for Noah Young. He was a lot further up this group a lap or so ago. Someone wide and slow. That was Felipe Reich, who had gained a whole load of places out of all of that. But if there's an issue with that number 7 car, he's maybe missed a gear coming out of Graham Hill Bend, and immediately gets back into the fight up the inside of Noah Young. It's hard, actually, genuinely hard to keep track of this, but they are going 2 by 2 down the hill. Torin Byrne on the inside, Raul Zanzaren on the outside, then Noah Young and Felipe Reich side by side. 21 is in this group as well, Matthew Chihuahua, the 5th car in line, the black and yellow. They sort it all out by the time they get down to the right-hander at Hawthorne. Ooh, Zanzaren wide though, tries to give Noah Young the squeeze, and Noah did back out of that. That will slow him down now. In fact, he's sideways. That'll really slow him down, and he gets served from behind. Off he goes. Oh, and he's spinning back into the trap. That's not good to see. Thankfully, there's not a big group of cars coming from behind. And Noah Young with a high-speed spin at Westfield. There wasn't really an awful lot that the car behind could do there. He was having a moment already, and I think it might have been Felipe Reich, was it, behind him, who just couldn't get out of the throttle quickly enough. Leaders, meanwhile, are continuing to gap Rocco Coronel. Coronel set that fastest lap when he broke into third position, but isn't going as quickly as these two anymore. Or on that particular lap, half a tenth maybe quicker than them, but not a lot. As there, George Proudfoot-Nalder goes to the inside and gains a position, or no, sorry, is defending 7th place from the 55 of Jarrett Clark. 73 in that group is Bartle, so Bartle continuing to go really well, and he forces Clark over the exit curve at Druids. Not quite hard enough though, and so Clark keeps the inside for Graham Hill then slips wide, and Harry Bartle, who's just going for every gap, nips back up the inside down the Cooper Straight. This is brilliant to watch, and he's going to get that move made, I think, isn't he? Yes, so another place gained by Bartle. That's 7th position now. George Proudfoot-Nalder is his next victim. And really impressive stuff, this, from the driver of car 73. In fairness, he started 9th, so I think he lost ground on the opening lap and has spent the rest of the race trying to get back to where he started. He's now bettering that, though. Looks to the inside of George Proudfoot-Nalder, who closes the door quite late. A bit of touch between them. But George keeps hold of the place. He's a bit slow out of Westfield, though. And again, Bartle looks to the inside, but they're 3 abreast, nearly 4 of them together, because Lindblom launches to the inside of Clark, who ends up wide. There's a gap up the inside there, though, for Bartle, and he's through. Bartle goes through, and Lindblom goes with him. So Scott Lindblom, 2 places gained in a corner and a bit, really. That was a really good opportunistic bit of driving sideways over the grass for Jarrett Clark. Gathers it together and somehow manages to get back ahead of George Proudfoot-Nalder through all of that. Josh Watts has caught this group, and I can't help but think he's wondering whether or not he should get involved, because this just has the makings of an incident, doesn't it? The way that they're all stacking up with each other, but they've kept it relatively clean so far. It's been a great display of close quarters driving. Let's hope they can keep it up for another 7 minutes. They're all bump drafting each other down the main straight. No one wants to duck out of line. Look, Lindblom daren't go to the outside, because that opens the door for Jarrett Clark. George Proudfoot-Nalder, under no pressure really from Josh Watts, is the one able to go in wide, and look at the effect that that has. The wide line in means he gets a tighter line out. He's on the throttle earlier, and it's all about momentum in these cars. That gets him the inside line for Druids, and I reckon he might be able to slip back ahead of Jarrett Clark here. Jarrett is standing his ground. George leaves him a little bit of space. Jarrett's on the grass, but he's still got the inside line for Graham Hill Bend, and he's going to go back through. There's a bit of wheel banging. Josh Watts now sees a chance to buy into all of this as well, and nips to the inside of the Australian driver. Down the back straight, there was definitely a bit of paint traded between the two of them there, and Josh Watts' shiny new car is a little bit less shiny as a result of that. Give it another corner though, and he'll get stuck straight back in again. Harry Bartle now finding out how difficult it is to lead a pack of cars in Ginetta Junior Racing, because you are now the one punching the hole in the air for the cars behind to benefit from. Lindblom, though, again, daren't go to the outside into Hawthorn, so that opens the door for Jarrett Clark to take the wide line in, tight line out, maybe nip to the inside into Westfield. This, of course, is the move that Lindblom made a lap ago, but it's not going to happen this time for Clark. He's under threat from Proudfoot-Nalder, and Josh Watts goes around the outside of both of them. He's on the grass, but he keeps his foot in it. No, not going to quite have the momentum down the hill. Side by side behind. Del Grosso losing out now, I think, Emilio Del Grosso. 2 places being lost, maybe. No, 1 place being lost into Sheen Curve, although he's off the road. So too is George Proudfoot-Nalder. The dusty situation up at Sheen and Stirling's is causing havoc. And George Proudfoot-Nalder will bounce back on the road. And now he's part of another battle. In fact, this is an even bigger battle pack behind him. So 5 minutes to go. Still no change at the front. Fred Green from Max Cuthbert by, well, less than a Ginetta G40's length. It's then 4.5 seconds back to Rocco Coronel and Colin Cronin, who've been caught now, interestingly, by Alfie Slater. So it's actually a 3-way fight for third, and I think that's going to prevent them realistically from going after the race leaders. Big dive up the inside there for Lindblom. Proudfoot-Nalder's off the road again and sweeps across to the inside line to try and cover from the 83 machine, and that is Revy Lake, who started 19th on the grid and is now going for a position inside the top 10. Revy Lake really charging here, and George Proudfoot-Nalder's race unravelling around him, really. Is Lake going to get a run up the inside? Well, maybe, but then there's also the car behind, the number 40 of Josh Henry to contend with, and Emilio Del Grosso, and Raul Zanzaran, and about 3 or 4 others as well. This is manic racing. There's just something about Ginetta Juniors around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit that is guaranteed excitement, and we saw it last year, we're seeing it again in 2025. We came here last year with the championship more or less wrapped up at the final round, There is still a championship at stake here, although Rocco Coronel just needs to keep bagging the points, which he is doing. It's those who are not in championship contention, really, who are providing most of the excitement. And there's still plenty more excitement that we can cram into the next couple of laps of racing, I reckon. So down the hill we go. That's Del Grosso in the yellow car, defending from Raul Zanzara, the Spaniard, who tries the outside into Sheen Curve, but that's a dangerous place to be, so cuts back onto the racing line. Del Grosso defends into Sterling's, but that's so dusty on the inside line that I'm not convinced that's the right line to be taking, really. I don't think anyone's got any grip in that particular part of the track. Meanwhile, Scott Lindblom back ahead of Harry Bartle. I don't think that's a bad thing for Bartle, though, because he can sort of sit there now, can't he, and plan his attack maybe for the last lap of the race. Very much like what we're seeing Max Cuthbert do at the front of the field. I think he's just waiting till the last lap and trying to make his move. Wide goes Lindblom at paddock, but Bartle doesn't slip through on the run up Hailwood Hill. And doesn't even think about going to the inside into Druid. So I think for now Bartle is content to sit there. And Jarrett Clark behind, and Josh Watts will be hoping that he doesn't, and hoping that he does go for a move, and that might open the door for them. We've had a drama at Druids for Max Murray. Max Murray, Scottish driver with possible spin. He's recovering from whatever the moment was and seems to be back up to speed now. Slots in line behind Matthew Chihuahua, who was much more of a factor in this group earlier on, but has since dropped back a little bit. Torin Burns, 16th on the grid. I said that Torin was one to watch for, maybe moving forwards in this race, but it's been exactly the opposite, I'm afraid, for Torin. The pace performance car has slipped down the order rather than rising up it. 16th place, going for 15th here to the outside of Emilio Del Grosso. Got a nice side draft there down the hill, tucked up against the left rear wheel arch of the number 5 car, slowed Emilio down and sweeps around the outside at Hawthorne. Right, we're about to begin the final lap of the race. When does Max Cuthbert make his move? Everyone on this grid has watched what Rocco Coronel has done all year long, and Rocco will get into second place and then wait and wait and wait and then pounce, usually on the last lap of the race. This is the last lap that we're beginning now, so Max Cuthbert, if he's going to take a page out of the Rocco Coronel playbook, this is when he'll make his move. He forces Fred Green to defend into Paddock Hill Bend, takes that wide line in, tries to cut back to the late apex, but Fred Green is wise to that. The momentum is still with car 34 though, so Cuthbert goes to the outside into Druid's corner. Will he try and go right round the outside? No, because he knew that he wouldn't be left the space by Fred Green, and he also knows there are still overtaking opportunities to come further round the lap, so better not to show your hand just yet. Remember, he is an R-Racing teammate of Rocco Coronel. They might not run the same livery, but they are run out of the same stable, and I'm sure he's been monitoring his teammates' tactics that have been so successful this year and would now love to get his first win in the championship using the same sort of plan. This is his chance now. He's in the slipstream, out of Surtees, up and over the hill, down Pilgrim's Drop. We know that Fred Green will defend the inside line, so Max Cuthbert will have to go to the outside, gets the side draft, slows the leader down. They'll be level into the braking zone. In fact, he has his nose ahead. Is he going to commit to the outside line? No, again, just doesn't want to take too much of a risk. Slots back in behind Fred Green, but now Max Cuthbert's running out of opportunities. Westfield isn't an overtaking chance, usually, unless you're Scott Lindblom, nor really is Sheen Curve, unless there's a mistake from the leader, which there isn't. Green was wide over the curb, but he wasn't slow. So really, 2 more opportunities to come. One is Sterling's, and that's a real Hail Mary, usually up the inside. And the last one is Clearways. Fred Green defends into Sterling's. That will mean that Cuthbert is quicker out of the left-hander, but there's nowhere to go. He can't time the run. He's got a face full of Ginetta, and Fred Green will defend that white line on the inside as though his life depends on it. This is going to be a run to the flag. Cuthbert takes the wide line into Clearways. Again, will cut back. Green parks the car on the apex, though. Beautiful defensive driving from Fred Green, who will use that defensive driving to get to the line first and claim win number 3 of the season in the Ginetta Junior Championship. A perfectly managed race, that, from Fred Green, and he saw off the challenge from Max Cuthbert, who waited all race for his chance, and when it came, he wasn't able to take it. Rocco Coronel scores some more valuable championship points in 3rd. All 3 of our podium finishers, by the way, in the rookie class. Not that that means a huge amount in Ginetta Junior Racing. Some of these battles still raging on. This is going to be almost a dead heat at the line. Torin Byrne just getting the better of Emilio Del Grosso at the line. It was only for 15th place, but you would have thought it was for a race win, the intensity with which they were battling. And even Ethan Carney picked up a few places after his early race spin. Well, fantastic stuff, and I have to say, Fred Green I doff my cap to you. He was not in a good position there on the last lap. He had Max Cuthbert in the slipstream, no one to apply any pressure to Max either, and it's almost always the second car in a two-car breakaway that has the advantage in Ginetta Juniors because of the power of the slipstream. But Fred knew where the attacks were coming. He knew that as long as he parked the car on the apex, he wasn't going to be vulnerable to the switchback, and ultimately he was able to keep the R Racing driver behind him and claim the victory for Elite Motorsport. So it's win number 3 of the season for Fred Green. Max Cuthbert comes home even in second place, a 10th.5 behind. Rocco Coronel is only third. It's his second worst finish of the year, but it's still one more step towards the championship. Alfie Slater and Colin Cronin, the first of the 2 non-rookies, complete the top 5. Then it was Harry Bartle, Scott Lindblom, Jarrett Clark, brilliant drive that from Josh Watts in 9th, and George Proudfoot-Nalder ends up 10th. Then it was Revy Lake and Josh Henry with Lewis Goff 13th. Rouse and Zarin 14th ahead of Torin Byrne, who just got the better of Emilio Del Grosso at the line by 59 thousandths of a second. Felipe Reich, Max Murray, Andrew Robinson and Noah Young complete the top 20 ahead of Ethan Carney, Matthew Chihuahua, Henry Cameron and Katrina E. A breathless race here at Brands Hatch. Let's check out the highlights. An entertaining first race of the weekend for the Ginetta Junior Championship here at Brands Hatch, and it was all action from the very start of the race. Not necessarily at the front of the field though, in fairness. Max Cuthbert had the early advantage. Fred Green though made his immediate decisive move for the lead at Druids and managed to move ahead of the R Racing driver. Those two would then work together for the entirety of the race to get away from a swarming battle pack of cars that were all intent on setting chase after them. Out wide over the grass went Ethan Carney. That wouldn't be his last drama of the race either though, as he was then assaulted at Stirling's by Alfie Slater. Alfie got to the inside, there was contact between the two of them. Slater saved it, Carney did not. There were a lot of big lunges from Harry Bartle, though he was charging forward after a slightly sluggish start. He was proving to be one of the quickest and most aggressive drivers in the midfield battle. That squeeze put George Proudfoot-Nalder out wide, and he didn't really leave a lot of room for Scott Lindblom either, who found himself in the middle of a high-speed sandwich heading down Pilgrim's Drop. Rally crossing seemed to be the order of the day. 4 wide through Dingle Dell, I never thought was possible. It's a miracle that they all got away with this. A lot of paint traded, but some brilliant racing in the midfield as drivers desperately tried not to fall too far down the pack. Noah Young unfortunately had a slide over the curb at Westfield, and Felipe Reich it was in the number 7 car who just couldn't get away from him. Then more drama at Druids. That's what happened to Max Murray. Emilio Del Grosso was involved in that as well. At the end of the race, Max Cuthbert waited till the last lap to try and make his move on Fred Green. Try being the operative word. Fred had an answer for every question posed to him by Max Cuthbert, who came up just short of the victory. A 3rd win of the year, eventually going to Elite Motorsport's Fred Green.